As I'm Håkan Eriksson, I'm the CTO of Ericsson. I've been with Ericsson for now 25 years. So I've been part of this whole mobile journey. But now since a little bit more than a year, since January 2010, I'm based here in Silicon Valley as head of our operations here also, because a lot of things are happening here now. I mean, it used to be, as I will talk about in my presentation, it used to be about, as somebody has used for a tagline, about connecting people. But I think now it's much more about connecting to the cloud, connecting to the internet, and that is becoming more and more important. That's also what we see with Apple iPhone and what all the devices coming with Android operating system and the market share those phones are taking. And now the smartphones are really taking over from the feature phones. There are about 1.2, 1.3 billion phones sold every year. If you do the math, that comes to about 30 phones per second. So that's around the clock. And the human ear can hear down to 20 hertz. So you should all be able to hear that, because that's 30 hertz. That's how many phones are sold. So this is a very, very interesting industry. And as we will see when we now add the mobile broadband connectivity to that, that will change the whole world. And that is the short context of my presentation. This is our sort of one of our visions. We said that by 2020, everything that benefits from a network connection will be connected. And I think by 2020, we will even think of things that are not connected as almost like a dead device. Why is this device not connected? Why is it almost not working? Why is it not alive? You change perspective. Everything I read somewhere that people nowadays don't not see music on a CD. It's not digital, it's analog, because it's on a physical device. To be digital, music has to be on the internet so you can download it, otherwise it's not digital. So it's sort of the changing the concept of what you see as being digital and analog. And it has to be connected, to the cloud. And this is a vision of Ericsson, and that's coming back to being innovative, I think, and eating your own lunch and daring doing that. I think Ericsson was founded in 1876. We are clearly not living on that product portfolio right now. So we must have been innovative along the way. But the first 100 years we spent on connecting places. And now in the world we have connected some 1 billion places, not only Ericsson, but other companies also. Then we have spent the last 20 years connecting people. That's now 5 billion people, 5.3 billion subscriptions. And we're going to spend the next 10 years, the next decade, connecting 50 billion things. Why 50 billion? How do you define a connected thing and so on? That's not so important. It's 10 times more than 5. So it has to be different. You have to do provisioning differently. You cannot have a SIM card in all these things. And many other things have to work differently when you have everything, 50 billion devices connected. How will they be connected? They will be connected wirelessly. A few things will maybe still. I mean, if you have a big high-definition TV screen at home, that will be your motivation to keep some fixed connectivity. But otherwise, you are going away from fixed to mobile. That's where we have the growth. And these are top speeds. Your average speed will not be the same. But this is sort of how the technology is going. You will have multi-megabits connectivity wherever you are. And that is a very important realization for everything we're talking about here. We are now building an invisible multi-megabit connectivity layer basically across the globe. What can you do when you have connectivity with multi-megabit capabilities everywhere, basically? There will be industries and businesses coming up with ways of utilizing that for fun, for capacity enhancement, for cost reduction, for top-line revenues, for all different kinds of things. If we could say already now what will be used in 2020, what we'll use that for, it would be very boring. I think we cannot. If you just go back to 10 years, we were just thinking about if 3G would be something. 2001, 3G was launched. And then, I mean, Sol has the experience what happened when you built that HSPA network in Australia. It's a very nice video that Telstra shown a few times, where you have bushfires in Australia, and you have connectivity, you have broadband connectivity out where you have the bushfires. The tools you can put in the hands of the firemen when they can actually have the video downstream from helicopters flying above to see where the fire actually is instead of just running around there in the smog not knowing where the fire is. That you cannot do with Wi-Fi hotspots, because the likelihood of having a Wi-Fi hotspot exactly where the fire is very low, even though it's a different kind of hotspot. So you cannot do that. This is what kind of data, and I say voice is noise. This is the voice traffic. You only have to go back like 2-3 years in the mobile networks. Voice was absolutely dominating. Christmas 2009, that was when in the world when data passed voice in the networks. Now it is twice as much, even though it's hard to see here. Now it's 3 times as much 2011, and 2015 it might be some 20 times as much data as voice in the networks, only 4 years from now. The data is basically doubling every year. It's easy to double when you start from something small. It's getting tougher and tougher to double. So maybe it will not double all the years, the coming years, but if it would double, say, all the way up to 2020 when we have these 50 billion connected devices. If you double something 10 times, it becomes 1024. So it will be that we will have to handle 1,000 times as much data 2020 as we do now. And then the whole business model flips around for all the, of course, for all the operators. In this world that we can hardly see here, it made sense to count minutes. And you could give away the data flat fee, it was sort of okay, just to get the business going. In this world, it becomes a little bit strange to give away this flat fee and count these minutes. We can basically give away those for free. Or maybe you should come up with a different model. A model where you have first you go from flat fee to volume fee, and that is how far the PG&E has come. They charge you per kilowatt hour, but even I say some kilowatt hours are more important to me than others. The kilowatt hours that keep my meat frozen in my freezer is more important than the ones that can open and close my garage door. So maybe you could have a value-based model. And if you've moved to a value-based model here, say, okay, I will give you a pipe that has latency that is okay for voice. That's going to be $5 per month. I will give you another, if you want to play games and you need even shorter latency, that will be $7 per month. You want to do email, that's $2. Do you want to do email with attachment, that's $5. Do you want to stream video, that's $20. And then you just check what you want. If you want everything, you get a 10% discount. That's sort of a value-based. Then it doesn't matter if I pay for a pipe that can handle voice. It doesn't matter if I do Skype or Google Talk or if I use the operator's own voice over LTE or something else. It doesn't matter. Today the problem is that voice is a vertical service where you charge for the minute and give away the connectivity. Then it becomes a problem when people want to move to Skype because then they use only the part that you give away. But if you charge for where you actually add value in the value chain, the connectivity that nobody can take, we saw that on the question that we had, that was the only thing that could not be taken away. So make sure that you charge for the part in the value chain where you're actually very unthreatened and the entry barriers are enormous and you actually add a lot of value. So this calls for a completely different way of handling the pipe. And if there's one slide I want you to remember, is this one maybe then, because I think there's lots of talk about, this is now a Sony Ericsson phone if you want to compare. It's not always the iPhone. I mean, this is this one. Yeah. Okay. This is the device with Apple OS or with Android. Android is now passing Apple OS because there are more phones coming out with that device. Being connected wirelessly, because that gives you have the speeds that are enough to do it wirelessly, and that gives you all the convenience of being wireless. That's a lot to talk about that. There's also a lot to talk about the cloud. But both the cloud and all the defined devices, the iPads and everything is absolutely useless without the connectivity in between. And then I've created this fantastic little hat there that make it look smart. It's a smart pipe. And that's my whole point there. You have to have tools in the pipe to do quality of service differentiation, to have ways to charge both downstream and charge upstream for what you are providing, to have tools there for the operators to play with different charging and tariffing schemes to compete. Because a lot of the competition will be about about having a good connectivity. As Sol saw in Australia, when the next G came out, it actually added value because there was a network that had good connectivity. Don't have to talk about all the megabits and everything, because that could be difficult to explain, but you have good connectivity everywhere that has a value. But it cannot just be a dumb pipe, it has to be a smart pipe. And once you have that, then there will be the other things we talked about. We'll be able to use this. If you have the mobility, you have the broadband, and you connect with lots of other industries will grow up around that, utilizing that. Then you can say, okay, how much of that money floating around in all these industries will come into the operator? But it depends on how much you actually are relevant to those businesses. How much can you prove that you take out cost, for instance? But if you don't do a good job at your basics, then it will be difficult to go in. And if you look, I talked a little bit during the coffee break here. We have these 6 different boxes where what will create growth. And if we look at it from our perspective in a way, what will generate growth for the operators the coming 5 years? It is mobile broadband. That's where all the growth sits. And I don't know exactly in which box it was. Maybe it was in the embedded connectivity, or if it was in the green, the core services. But if we look at it coming up to 2015, I would say the total revenues for all the operators in the world in the other boxes basically becomes insignificant in the growth compared to the growth only in mobile broadband. Basically, that's where all the growth sits. Growth sits in mobile connectivity. And monetize that and handle that well. That is maybe a boring thing, but that is actually what's going to happen. I pay $25 for my iPad, 2 GB per month. I think that's too little. It's worth more to me than $25. I usually say, I'm told by our marketing department not to use that example because I'm not supposed to talk about junk food and alcohol, but I say I can't get a beer and a pizza for $25 almost that I consume in 15 minutes. So if you pay the same for a beer and a pizza as you pay for basically for most people all you can eat mobile broadband for a month. I've asked a lot of people to trade and say, I'll pay you a beer and a pizza if you give up your mobile broadband for a month. Nobody takes that offer. It's worth so much more. It's so included in our life now, so we have to have it. So I talked about mobility, broadband, and cloud as the component to this network society that we think will happen. We being Ericsson. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.